What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going over the real reasons why I ultimately made the decision to move out of this garage for good. Now, I've mentioned a few of these things in previous videos. I don't want to be too repetitive, so we're just going to kind of breeze over and summarize those things and then get into the nitty-gritty and what ultimately happened within the last few months that really made me get to the point of making this decision of just getting out of here for good. So with all that being said, let's dive right into the video. Alrighty, so just to summarize some of the older points that I've mentioned before, it is the location, the commute here, and the parking situation both in the garage and outside this garage. Now, the location is something that I absolutely cannot stand. From the very first time that I came here to look at this place almost 2 years ago, I said absolutely not, I do not want to be in this area. This is in downtown Salem, right in the middle of everything. Getting here is an absolute nightmare no matter which direction you go. During the month of October, beginning of November, and the end of September, because of Halloween, it is literally impossible to get here because this garage is steps away from where all that stuff is. That means also the traffic coming in and out of here at night and in the early mornings, absolute nightmare. Location, A1, 2 thumbs down. Second thing is the parking situation. I have pretty much no parking outside. So in order to get this car out, when I drove here in another car, we have to play shuffle cars, move cars around. It's a total pain in the butt. Every time you saw a video where the Santa Fe or even the Durango way back was in this garage, I had to sit here for a 45-minute thing and do a in and out with one car and move in this car and everything. Didn't work out. And that will get into another point later on. So now getting onto topics that I haven't really addressed much at all, and the very first one of those is going to be privacy. Now this garage unfortunately has access to a lot of other people besides me. Now when I moved in here originally, I did know that the guy who owns the garage is going to have a key here. He is going to stop in here every once in a while. That was fine, understood. The second thing I was told was that the guy who rents a single bay next door on the other side of this wall in front of me here also has a key to this garage because he uses the bathroom in the back corner over there. And I said, you know what, that's not a big deal because he has a 57 Chevy Bel Air in that garage. It's worth a pretty good amount of money, and I respect his respect level of my car because I know that he's not going to be walking around my car brushing up against it, doing anything to it, because he knows the value and respect that other people should have for other people's cars. So I wouldn't have a problem with that. However, what I didn't know is how many other people besides those two people would be in here. I can't tell you how many times I've been in this garage and people have just walked in like, what are you doing all the time? Now I can only imagine what is going on when I'm not here, because I'm not here very often, because like I've mentioned in previous videos, me being here just makes me miserable, hence why I don't come here, hence why I don't work on the car here, hence why I haven't gotten anything done to the car this year or even last year. So that kind of thing just doesn't let sit easy on me. This car hasn't been driven pretty much at all this year. There's scratches and dings and stuff like that on it. Did that happen when I drove it the 4 times I drove it this year? I don't think so. Did it happen when it was here parked and somebody was here when I wasn't here? I don't know, but I do know that there's a snowblower 2 feet away from my $3,000 set of wheels with powder coating that I know that I will never ever be able to match, and now it's chipped. You tell me what happened. Anyway. Now the next thing I need to talk about is space, because that is going to play an ultimate huge role in my final decision on why I'm getting out of here. Now, to go back a little bit, I originally rented out this place in November of 2020 just for winter storage, and I rented out this middle section right here. Now, I only rented this place out for winter storage because in October of 2020, I just finished completely redoing this entire car. Not only do we have new wrap and new wheels, we also did a bunch of different suspension adjustments, tweaks here and there. We took the entire suspension out of this car, completely cleaned it, refreshed it, did everything we could. And then on top of that, I also upgraded to a brand new air suspension management system. We upgraded from the old V2 to the current 3H. So I said, you know what, since I didn't even get to enjoy the car before winter was here because we didn't finish it till middle of October, I said, you know what, let me find a garage that's cheap, preferably heated, which this garage is, and just store it indoor for the next few months. So that way, come springtime, this car is still in pristine condition. And that's exactly what I did. Now, fast forward till spring 2021, I needed a space to store all of the stuff that you see back here because unfortunately my grandfather passed away. I had all of this stuff in his garage. The family was selling his house, putting it on the market, so that meant I needed to find somewhere to put this stuff. Now, I was originally just going to get a storage unit, put all the stuff there, problem would have been solved. However, I said, you know what, I might as well just keep this space. I can work on the car here if I ever have to, work on my other car, which was the Durango at the time, because that was having a ton of problems. And I was like, you know what? talked to the guy. I said, hey, I'll take this spot indefinitely as long as I can clean out this back area over here because it had a bunch of desks, a weird table, workbench thing over here. He said, yeah, absolutely. You take that stuff out, move your stuff in, you can rent out this one bay indefinitely. Now, that was all fine and dandy having this one section all through 2021 because this car practically lived at my house at all times because I drove this thing probably 4, if not 5 times a week. I almost daily drove this thing for quite a while during the summer of 2021. We put a ton of miles on this car. I was always driving it. Every weekend I was taking it out to shows, meets, events, anything like that. And on the weekdays, I would just joyride this thing for pretty much no real reason other than just because I could. So this car was never really here in 2021, which was great because if I ever had to bring another car in, this space was already empty and it was no big deal. However, where the issue started to arise when I started to put this car in this garage and realized that, hey, if this car is in this garage and I'm parked outside, the vehicle outside is partially blocking this door. So in order to get this car out, because it's so wide, I need to take the car that's parked over there, move it way over there, come back to the garage, take this car, park it way over there, go back outside, take that car, and push back over here to leave the car in my parking spot. Now that meant every time I had the car in here, I wanted to take it out for a little bit and then bring it back in the garage later. I do that twice. It was even more annoying when I had this car in here. I had to get another car in the garage and pull it inside, just like I had mentioned earlier in this video. So that's when I said, you know what? I'm gonna take a second space here so I have 2 bays so I can work on 2 cars and not have to worry about taking this one in and out. So I talked to the guy. I said, hey, I'll take this other bay. I really need a second space to work on a second car when I need to, as well as having more room to do more work on this car. Because at the time, I still had planned on taking these fender flares off and completely redoing them, and having only that little back area to work was a little bit difficult because there's no light up there. The light's way over here, way over there in that area. Although it looks somewhat bright, it is pretty dark over there, and I just needed more space to work on stuff for this car as well as another car. So this now brings us up to spring of 2022 when I had officially started paying for this second bay. Now all this stuff up against this wall right here was supposed to be moved out so I could have definitely fit a second car in here. I measured it out between the pole and the wall. Plenty of space, plenty of room backwards, plenty of room to the sink, the bathroom, everything like that. But all this stuff was eventually supposed to be moved out of here. I did say it was okay to temporarily leave it here because as long as I had more room to work on this car, didn't matter. I didn't need this stuff out of the way right away, but this stuff was supposed to be moved, and as you can see, it clearly was never moved. All right, so now it's time we need to take a pause on talking about the second space and the stuff up against the wall that was never moved, because we're gonna fast forward to September of 2022 when an issue of heating this place came up. Now, previously I had been paying X amount of dollars for heat for the very first season, and that was supposed to be my price for any other additional seasons that I was still in here. However, the winter of 2021 into 2022, I just so happened to pay 2 times that amount because, hey, prices have gone up, no big deal. I expected to be here a lot more than I was here the previous year. In the long run, however, I was only here about 35, maybe 45 times total for the entire winter. So I didn't really use much heat, but it was only a couple $100, so it was no big deal. However, like I said, fast forward to September 2022, just a few months prior to this video being filmed, it got brought up that I was responsible solely for using 100 gallons of oil last winter. And I said, hold up, back up. I was barely here. When I am here, I barely even have the heat on. Half the time I am here trying to use the heat, the thermostat doesn't even work. I've mentioned the thermostat doesn't work. The guy doesn't come here. He doesn't seem to care. So therefore, I've just been dealing with that kind of stuff, which is another reason we're moving out here, but I'm not even gonna get into that in this topic. However, like I said, I was being blamed for using all this oil when I was barely even here. Now, this garage has plumbing in it, meaning that it always has to be heated to at least 40 degrees, or else the plumbing freezes. So whether I'm here or not, the place is always heated. The problem is that these garage doors are not sealed whatsoever. So we are literally just pumping heat straight out the door. I had mentioned, hey, the heat probably is just going out the door because I was never really there. I don't know how I could have used that much oil. I did use some oil because I was here maybe 40 times last winter. So yeah, I'll continue to pay for the heat just like I have been. What do you think you're doing? He wanted me to pay an exorbitant amount of money, 5 times what I was originally supposed to be paying per season, essentially. We won't get into specific numbers here, but just know it was 5 times my original amount. And at that point, I said to myself now, I'm like, you know what? I'm just getting out of here, because at this point, I've now been paying for a second spot for 7 or 8 months, and it never was cleaned out. So I've been paying for this entire second space that I'm standing in right now, the entire year almost, and it was never cleaned out. So I've been never, ever, ever have I been able to pull a second vehicle in this garage. And at that point, I said, you know what? Those 2 factors are just getting ridiculous. I said, hey, before I move out and find another garage, I will pay the heat. I'll just take it, I'll just suck it up. I'll pay for the heat. However, you really need to get the stuff up against the wall, moved out. I've been paying for that bay to have a second car move in here. I really need to be able to get a second car in here, because at the time I had just purchased the Santa Fe and I want to do a bunch of stuff with it. And it was basically told to me that if the stuff up against the wall gets moved, which was supposed to be originally moved regardless, when I started paying for the second bay, that never was, I would have to then be paying more per month for this second bay than what we agreed upon originally. So now not only was I paying 5 times the amount of heat that I was supposed to be paying, I was also being charged more for this space. So I said, absolutely not. A couple months went by, I couldn't find another garage that was suitable, that was cheap enough. I couldn't really find anybody, like I've mentioned in previous videos, who would like to be splitting a garage with me. So ultimately, it got to the point where December came, and I said, you know what? It is time that I just get out of here, because it was just nonstop, constant back and forth. Nobody was really listening. We had this big ordeal where we had an in-person meeting here that the owner insisted upon, that everything we discussed was seemingly either ignored or completely forgotten about. Every time I brought it up, told him what we agreed upon here, it was just like, I never said that, that was never said. So I started only using text messages. For some reason, text messages, which is literally recorded written word that you can easily go back and reread and rethink upon, was just unacceptable anymore. And I said, you know what? I'm not gonna do this back and forth thing. There's no reason that I should have this much aggravation and frustration levels for a garage that this entire time I've not only been paying for space that I don't use, I'm being blamed for heat that I don't actually use. Second of all, I don't even like this place, so just being here and thinking about all these different things has completely killed my motivation to work on my own car. So why should I continue to pay for this space if all of those issues are going on? And that is literally what drove me to the decision of saying, you know what? I'd rather have this car parked outside all winter in the snow and have potentially nowhere to store it or even work on it than continue to pay for something that I absolutely hate. And that is the entire summarized version of what has been going on. Alrighty guys, so it has unfortunately been a full month since everything you've seen up until this point in the video, and that is simply due to the fact that I am just now receiving my security deposit that I was owed when I moved out of the garage. I don't know really what is or why it took this long to get this, but yeah, I did have a whole different outro filmed for this video that was short, sweet, and to the point, but obviously I didn't want to edit and upload this video until everything was completely squared away with this garage. The chapter was closed, the doors were knocked down, and everything was just out of the way. And I'm finally at this point, a few days short of a full month after I left the garage. This is something that has been said that it was mailed out and mailed out and mailed out, or it was going to be mailed out for weeks now. Just finally getting it at the end of the month. Like I said, we are a few days short of being out of the garage for a full month. Now, if the roles were reversed and I owed him rent and it took me this long to get him the rent, you know for a damn fact that it would be a massive issue. But all of a sudden, when the roles were reversed, tides are turned, and you owe me money, it's okay to delay it. Say you're mailing something out and then never actually doing it. So it's just been absolutely crazy having to just track this thing down and finally get it in my possession. On top of that, the funniest part about this whole thing is that 3 weeks, a full 3 weeks after I moved out of the garage, I got a text message on Saturday morning accusing me of stealing my own trash barrel from the garage, which is just absolutely crazy. It's a little brute trash barrel. I've had it forever. The whole bottom of it is completely worn out from me dragging around from place to place. For some reason, I don't know why I keep bringing this thing with me. It's just one of of those standard light gray brute trash barrels that you can find at any single home improvement store for $24. And I was accused of stealing my own trash barrel. And I actually said to the point where I was like, if the trash barrel means so much to you and it's going to speed up the process of me getting my security deposit back, I will just drive it back to you and drop it off, and I will just go ahead and buy my own trash barrel. This has just been completely ridiculous. Yeah, that's just an example of just, I'm just going to end that story there, because that's just a prime example of how immature this entire situation has been, and why the whole heat, this thing and that thing, just whole situation really pissed me off. And now that I've actually moved out and moved on, it is just continually getting worse, and it just shows kind of character levels here on the other parties. But like I said, I finally have my security deposit. I'm in the parking lot of the bank. I'm gonna run in, cash this thing, and I can finally close this chapter and never have to look back on it again, because this has just been a total pain in the ass. Sorry for the long, drawn-out outro. Kind of depressing video, kind of even more depressing outro, but I guess it is what it is. And I got a bunch of stuff that has been going on at the new spot. Well, it's not really a new spot, it's an old spot. We'll get into that in the next video. Haven't filmed anything up until this point, just because I've been working on trying to clean that space out. I had a dumpster, I threw so much stuff away, cleaned out an entire basement. It's just been a long whole month. Still have a bunch of stuff to do. And yeah, so we'll pick it up in the next video, but for now, peace out. I'll catch you guys on the next one.